Howdy y'all, welcome back to Rat's Nest Hot Rods. We are installing a Kwik Wire universal wiring harness in a 1966 AMC Rambler. This car belongs to my friend Ray. He is, if you look in that rear window, he's in there working away tirelessly as well. I've got a lawnmower battery in the back of the trunk here, and we're starting to do some of the testing on the final lamps, light fixtures, and everything like that. If you don't have a small battery, I suggest you get one if you're going to do some wiring, because it's helpful. You can use a power probe. It's a tool, a troubleshooting tool that is pretty widely used by mechanics and auto electric folks. I've got one of those too, but I find it easier just to use the old battery. Anyway, what I'm finding out right now is that I don't have really good solid grounds on any of the lights that are in this car, and they rely on contact with the base of the fixture and the body itself and carrying that to ground, which that's kind of how they built everything and still do in a lot of ways, but I like to run a jumper on those, and we're going to get to that here in a little bit. We're also going to kind of dissect the craziness of the gauge cluster. Pretty wild setup. I'm used to having wiring going in between things, and this has got like a super old circuit board kind of a deal that's got laid in copper and varnished over. It's pretty wild stuff, so we'll see that one in this video also. And we'll get her started up here shortly and do a quick compression test to check out Ray's engine health. Everything's going to check out good. And yeah, so I won't bore you any longer by talking, and I will speed this up, play some music, and we'll get to some cool stuff shortly, and I'll cut you back in when I got some good tips. We're going to slip on some wire loom here. I like this stuff when it's in areas that wiring could get injured. Yeah, you cut it, and then it frays a little bit. Put a lighter on it and melt those ends, and it'll stay good. It goes on kind of like one of those Chinese finger traps, and slides right over the wire. It does a good job and helps it look clean. I did every single wire in the Cadillac in wire loom, just to make it look a little nicer and tighter, but we're on a budget here for the Rambler, and I figured this is the only spot it really needed it, and that's to go across this front core support radiator kind of a mechanism here. So we'll slide this on in there and get it in place and start getting these headlights wired in.
El Paso, like a sunrise rehearsal, it came out of darkness on the edge of the world. Downtown El Paso was 1,000 sparks from a bothered fire. The graceful smell of oil, like a slender feather, floated weightlessly.
I'm installing a ground strap here. Didn't come from the factory this way. It relied on, like I said, metal on the headlight frame, going into the bucket there, and eventually grounding out on through screws and metal contact. I don't trust that, and I've seen enough of problems on the rest of this car with bad ground, so we're going to be putting grounding jumpers on pretty much everything in this car.
The Rio Grande divided the fluorescence from the candles of Juarez. 5 hours later, the dogs are barking, hoarding in the street. Through the Texaco station, the dusty wind hunts shadows.
Let's get this horn hooked up. If you noticed there in high speed, I was using those blue quick disconnects for the headlight, and you'll see that throughout the course of this video. I really believe in them. They have the heat shrink built into it, and have a kind of a waterproof goo that comes out. I guess that's the best way to describe that. When you heat it up, and it gives you a waterproof connection, or pretty damn close to it. Yeah, so I make ample use of those connectors, and I put heat shrink in places where I think we might need a little bit more insulation. You'll see that here shortly on this horn.
Slant the light in the blinds. Something has died here. I wake up to feel the fall of another darkness, not day. Like the sunrise on town. Sweet, cool prince of the cold countryside, into the supernova of a truck stop. In a green Nova he rides with a sleepless young beauty right by his side. The silver hell of the moon is well inside. The bowling alley bar alone lights up the night. It's a
you guys are under the dash in kind of this position right here by the fuse panel, take your time to tidy things up as you go, and make sure that all that wiring is going to tuck up into the dash. I'm about to find out that the routing that I chose for some of the wiring back to the trunk is not going to work for the kick panel and future install of stereo system, let alone the fresh air vent down there. So keep an eye on that. It's going to look like a bit of a mess there while it's hanging down. Just kind of want to keep taking a look at that and make sure you're going to be able to push that wire up. Try not to cross over and back and forth and twist around things. It's really easy to do, but you want to try and do your best not to do that. Just like everything else on this car business, take your time. Rushing is not going to help you.
$10,000 in the hole.
happening all at the same time. The miracle instant, nothing minute. The ugly, the sublime. Some people might ask me why I'm troubled, why I'm crazy, insane. You got no good reason, so why should you complain? Is it the people with the cash in the cafe who are smiling out the window and cutting at the steaks? Or is the little crack in the back of my soul which you can only be seen on X-ray, 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 X-ray? Or is it...
Alright, Ray's got all the work done under the hood, following the labeling on the wire and wiring everything up. I have got the ignition switch temporarily wired in because I'd like to see this thing crank over before we go any farther. Once that steering column goes in, you're kind of burying yourself under there, so I think this is a good idea. Get that thing fired and then check some of the lights that you can check. Most of them you're going to need the main lighting switch in and also the steering column. So there it goes. First shot, started right up, no problems, and we're going to jump out here and do a compression check on the engine. I won't slow that down. Plenty of videos on how to do that. I think most of you guys that are watching this probably do that more than you do some of this wiring maybe.
That makes you want to escape. What is it the night that makes you wanna run away? Get down now. Somewhere up in heaven, someplace down the block, someone is biting into an apple, someone is opening a box, someone is watching me try to pick up all these pieces again, to try to put back up this house of cards again. Is it the river of blood that washes away all the evidence that the plague ever came? Or is it the father of your lover who tells his daughter that by your side she will never be saved? Or is it the night that makes you want to escape? Or is it the night that makes you wanna run away? Get down now.
Time to start wiring everything in the dash and getting everything into place. I'm going to wire this air conditioner unit. The neutral safety switch is on, and also the backup light switch is right there next to the automatic transmission selector handle on the right hand side. So we're going to get that locked up, or wired up I should say, and start working on some of these other things to get her a little bit closer along. Ray's in the back of the car right now finishing up the wiring to the rear lights.
If something is defective with number 1129, we checked in last December and back then everything was fine. Is it the way you break a day that makes you, or is it the make or break of the insane ballet that takes you, or is it the locust of the strip mall come back again to mold you out of their clay? Or is it the night that makes you want to escape? Or is it the night that makes you wanna run away? Get down
What we found out again on the front of this car was bad grounds. and we're going to run through some testing right now to get, we got these really nice LEDs, ambers for the front, and we weren't getting a whole lot of light out of them. Ray's got his setup here. We had to get pretty funky with the sockets to get them in there. They weren't like the originals, and it was kind of a generic style, and we weren't getting a good ground. What we end up doing here in the near future is I'll drill out a hole in the back, run a tap in it, and then put a bonding jumper in from the light to the frame inside the car there, and that kind of solved our problem. So basically what I'm doing is creating a jumper right now to see if I can get full light out of the LED. It will work, and then I will start to customize those lights to get them to work a little better. I had to test and find out which one was the high and low beam on these. The socket setup was a little different than what I was used to. The pins were reversed. So we had to do a little kind of monkeying around here to find out which one was the ground. So we'll find that out right now. Shine that light at Ray and switch the wires around and get her installed.
I wanna sing my song right now about how I was destroyed, how we rode through the night with our bodies drained of joy. Don't you know America will eat her young, whether with a knee.
Alright, let's tease the next video, shall we? I got the meters, the batteries, the lamps. We got new lamps for this gauge cluster, and I'll show you up close and personal the bizarre way they did these dashes. Maybe I just haven't done enough cars, but this thing is beyond crazy the way they did this. It kind of self-grounds itself, but there's like these flat copper tape wires that are varnished over on that blue, I don't know, composite board, and it goes and circles around each light, and that's how it gets its power. Then there's like this horrible circular 16-prong power distributing plug on the back that we had to make work, and I basically soldered leads off, and we'll do that in the next video. But yeah, pretty weird, but I'll show more in depth on this in the next video. Thanks again for the subscriptions and the likes and the comments, and yeah, sorry I didn't get as far as I wanted to in this video, but we're bumping right over the 20-minute mark, and that's a little too long. So yeah, I'll be back next week with another one. Peace and grease, sucker.